So, good afternoon, friends. It's indeed a great pleasure for me to be here with all of you this afternoon for this very relevant, important, significant, and pertinent session on understanding and managing cash flow of corporate debtor. It's going to be my endeavor to share with you in this session the practical aspects of managing cash flow in case of a corporate debtor. So we all know the meaning, of course, of corporate debtor is in the context of insolvency and bankruptcy code, and it basically means, in simple words, is the company which has gone to NCLT for the resolution of its impending insolvency. It is the financial creditors who may have taken the company to NCLT, or may have been the operational creditors who may have taken the company to the NCLT, or the corporate itself may have taken it to NCLT for the purpose of resolving the impending insolvency. So it doesn't really matter as to who the initiator is. The moment a company has gone to NCLT for the purpose of resolution, insolvency resolution, it is now referred as corporate debtor. In this session, we are going to discuss as to what are the challenges that an interim resolution professional or the resolution professional has with regard to the resolution of insolvency of the corporate debtor. Among other things, cash flow management of the corporate debtor is of utmost importance in helping the IRP or IRP in finding resolution for the corporate debtor. Just to share with you a little bit our vision and mission, and that is knowledge of finance and awareness of work-life balance to everyone. Now, this is a mission for us in person, and that is how we keep trying doing things. We keep trying and reaching the knowledge of finance to as far as possible. And our belief is leaders only do right things and in right way. Why am I sharing this line with all of us? And that is because all the audience that we have here on this webinar, either they are insolvency professional, or they are valuation professional, or they are both. In any case, there are financial professionals. So they may be cost accountants, chartered accountants, company secretaries, or MBAs, or lawyers. So it becomes very important for us to understand this line, that leaders do right things and in right way, because all of us, in the capacity of a professional, in the capacity of an insolvency professional, finance professional, or valuation professional, are leaders. And that is what we constantly need to remember, that our role and responsibility is to do the right things and in right way, so that become an example for others to follow. And second line that I would like to also share with you at this juncture, and that is grass grows by itself, mango trees need to be planted and nurtured. Meaning what? Meaning कोई ऑर्डिनरी काम है तो ऑर्डिनरी काम तो अपने आप हो जाता है, लेकिन अगर कुछ एक्स्ट्रा ऑर्डिनरी करना है, अगर कुछ मैंगो प्लांट करना है, कुछ मैंगो ग्रो करना है, तो उसके लिए एक्स्ट्रा एफर्ट्स लेने पड़ते हैं, एक्स्ट्रा मेहनत करनी पड़ती है, और उसको प्लांट करना पड़ता है और उसको नर्चर करना पड़ता है. और जब ऐसा करते हैं तो ऑफ कोर्स वी गेट एक्स्ट्रा ऑर्डिनरी रिजल्ट्स. In the capacity of a professional, whether as cost accountant, chartered accountant, company secretary, MBA, lawyer, or in the capacity of resolution professional and valuation professional, that is what is expected from every one of us. Now, I'm going to discuss this particular session for next about 1 hour in different parts, and what I'm going to do in this discussion is to take you through different aspects of this topic. So, first of all, what is the role and responsibility of an interim resolution professional or a resolution professional? So, first of all, the prime responsibility which is enshrined in the IBC code as far as an insolvency professional is concerned, and that is to run the corporate debtor on a going concern basis. Apparently, obviously, the objective behind the IBC is not to close the companies down. The prime objective in the insolvency code is first to ensure that the companies the insolvency is resolved and company is turned around, so that this economic entity, this company, is able to contribute towards the growth of the economy. So that is the prime objective as far as the IBC is concerned, and that of course is also becomes prime responsibility as far as an insolvency resolution professional is concerned. And number two, in case if the insolvency is not going to get resolved or is not getting resolved, despite all the efforts taken by the insolvency resolution professional, in such a case, he has to work to ensure that entity is liquidated. And please remember, again, the objective behind going for the liquidation of the company as an eventuality is not really to liquidate that company or close that company or stop that company from working. The second objective behind this whole process is कि अगर कोई किसी कंपनी की इंसॉल्वेंसी रिजॉल्व नहीं होती है तो कम से कम उसको लिक्विडेट करें. और क्यों लिक्विडेट करें? ताकि उसकी जो एसेट्स हैं वो एसेट्स को सेल करें. और क्यों सेल करें? ताकि वो एसेट्स in the economic system are used by other people, other businessmen, other entrepreneur, and thereby these assets which were otherwise lying idle were not contributing anything. Once they are sold after liquidation of the corporate debtor, they are able to contribute in some way or the other towards the economic growth of the nation. And therefore, that also becomes the prime role and responsibility as far as the resolution professional is concerned. The second role and responsibility of an insolvency professional is to take an objective view about resolutionability of the corporate debtor. And this is what every one of us as resolution professional, once we are given that task, that responsibility of being an IRP or RP of a corporate debtor, that is the first thing that we have to do, and that is look at very, very objectively, analyze the whole situation very, very objectively, and without any bias, with total positivity, come to a conclusion कि क्या ये कंपनी वाकई में टर्न अराउंड हो सकती है, क्या ये कंपनी वाकई में इसके जो इंसॉल्वेंसी है उसको रिजोल्व किया जा सकता है. अगर उसकी इंसॉल्वेंसी को रिजॉल्व किया जा सकता है तो ऑब्वियसली एज ए इंसॉल्वेंसी प्रोफेशनल इट इज़ अवर रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी टू वर्क टू अचीव a resolution of the insolvency. However, remember, the situation of a corporate debtor will vary from company to company. There will be certain corporate debtor who would have all the assets in place, all the infrastructure in place, people also in place, and as much as in certain cases, cash flow can also be good. So in such cases, of course, resolving the insolvency is not a big challenge. It's just that the interim resolution professional or insolvency resolution professional or the insolvency resolution professional just has to work with full concentration and focus so as to put all the missing blocks in place, and so that the picture is complete and the company is turned, the insolvency is resolved and company turns around and start contributing towards the economy of the country. So, and that is where you have to take a position. So पूरा चीज़ को एनालाइज करिए कि कंपनी कहाँ पे स्टैंड करती है, क्या वाकई में कंपनी को रिजॉल्व किया जा सकता है. अगर रिजॉल्व किया जा सकता है इंसॉल्वेंसी को तो उसके लिए काम करिए. अगर उसको रिजॉल्व नहीं किया जा सकता है, देन द सेकंड ऑब्जेक्टिव इज टू वर्क टू लिक्विडेट दैट कंपनी इन द मोस्ट ऑप्टिमिस्टिक मैनर एंड with maximum optimization. And I'm using the word maximum optimization. That means so as to ensure that the assets which are disposed of that corporate debtor, maximum value is realized from the liquidation of those assets. And the third responsibility is, of course, is to find a resolution plan and implement it. So अगर कंपनी की जो सिचुएशन है, उसकी जो एसेट्स हैं, लाइबिलिटीज़ हैं, उसका जो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर है, उसका जो सपोर्ट है, उसकी जो फैसिलिटीज़ हैं, उसका जो प्रोडक्ट है, उसकी जो टेक्नोलॉजी है, उसकी जो डिमांड है, उसका जो मार्केट है, उसका जो मार्केट का पोटेंशियल है, अगर ये सारे फैक्टर्स को ध्यान में रखें और अगर ऐसा लगता है कि ये कंपनी टर्न अराउंड हो सकती है, देन द प्राइम रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ऑफ द रेजोल्यूशन प्रोफेशनल बिकम्स टू एंश्योर दैट ही इनवाइट्स right proposal, right resolution proposal, and then implement one of the best resolution proposal so as to turn that company around. Now, as far as the cash flow management is concerned, we will understand also the cash flow, as the topic is understanding cash flow and managing cash flow of a corporate debtor. So we will also understand as to how do we do the cash flow management. But before that, when you look at any corporate debtor which comes to you either in the form of IRP or in the form of IRP. Now here I would like to mention for the consideration of the authorities, the provision of IRP having a right only to work for 30 days and thereafter being at the mercy of the financial creditor or the COC to determine whether to continue him or not to continue him, I think is in my view, in my personal view, is a serious setback to the entire process of the resolution professional, insolvency resolution. And why is that so? That is because when a person knows that he is going to be in the place only for 30 days, then you can imagine what kind of commitment or dedication he can put from his side. तो एक महीना तो आदमी को पूरा तैयारी करने में निकल जाता है, और अगर उतने समय में अगर उससे उसकी जो उसको जो राइट मिला है, इंसॉल्वेंसी रिजॉल्व करने का अपॉर्चुनिटी मिली है, इफ इट इज टेकन अवे, देन ऑल हिज एफर्ट्स विल गो डाउन द ड्रेन. And therefore, this I am mentioning for the consideration of the authorities, that they must really think about it, that once a resolution professional is appointed, whether by the operational creditor or by the financial creditor or by the corporate debtor himself, then he must be allowed to continue and do his job, so that from day one he knows that he has a task, and that is to resolve the insolvency. Having said that, any corporate debtor, when it comes in the fold of a resolution professional, its cash flow can have three different stages. And what are those three different stages? Those three different stages are: number one, the corporate debtors का जो cash flow है, it may be negative. And when I say it may be negative, that means company is bleeding, and that means company is not generating cash. Rather, every day this company is losing cash. Now this of course is the very, very bad situation, worst situation for anybody to handle, and that is where insolvency resolution professional will have maximum challenges as far as the management of the cash flow is concerned. The second situation of a corporate debtor as regards to the cash flow can be neutral. So when I say neutral, that means the corporate debtor is operational, it is manufacturing, it is producing, it is selling. The only challenge is the cash that it is generating is more or less same as the cash it is consuming. That means this corporate debtor is not having any surplus cash flow. That means not leaving any margin with the corporate debtor to play with, and to ensure that he has sufficient time to turn that company around. Challenging, but less challenging than when the cash flow of a corporate debtor is negative. And the third situation, which of course is not very common, it happens not very commonly, and that is the corporate debtor's cash flow is positive. That means even though for whatever reason, and that is for the reason of failure on the part of the corporate debtor to fulfill its obligations toward the operational creditors and the financial creditors, this corporate debtor may have gone to the NCLT under the IBC. But there is a full possibility that company is producing, manufacturing, selling, and selling well, and as a result of that, the cash flow of the company is cash inflow of the company is more than the cash outflow from the company. And that means what? That means the insolvency resolution professional or resolution professional of this entity or this corporate debtor, to that extent, has got lesser challenges, because he does not have to worry so much about the cash flow as much as he has to worry about the resolution of insolvency. So these are the three stages that in which the corporate debtor which has come to your fold as an insolvency professional the corporate debtor may be in one of these three situations. And depending on the situation, whether it is negative situation or neutral situation or positive situation, you can prepare your own strategy and you can identify the area of focus for taking this corporate debtor forward. Now, as the title of the session says, understanding the cash flow. So, understanding the cash flow and the managing the cash flow. Now, what do we mean by understanding the cash flow? So, मेरे हिसाब से अगर हमको कैश फ्लो को अंडरस्टैंड करना है तो कैश फ्लो को अंडरस्टैंड करने के दो ही तरीके हैं. एंड दैट मीन्स व्हाट? दैट मीन्स कैश फ्लो ऑफ एनी कॉर्पोरेट डेटर कैन बी लुक्ड एट फ्रॉम टू perspective. Meaning what? Meaning we can prepare the cash flow for a corporate debtor. Either we can prepare the fund flow statement or we can prepare the cash flow statement. A question that would come to your mind at this juncture, which is quite obvious, and that question is, what is the difference between the fund flow statement and what is the difference between the cash flow statement? Are these two same or they are different? Let me answer this question of yours at this juncture only. For all practical purposes, the fund flow statement and cash flow statement are same. Their outcomes are also same, and there is not much difference except two. And what those two differences are? Those two differences are, number one, as far as the cash flow statement is concerned, cash flow statement is prepared statutorily. That means the companies to which accounting standards are applicable, whether the Indian GAAP or the Ind AS, whenever to a company, to an entity, Ind AS is applicable or Indian GAAP is applicable, that entity will have to prepare the cash flow statement as per the format which is prescribed in the accounting standards. So Ind AS 7, which is on cash flow statement, talks about as to how the cash flow statement is to be prepared, because this cash flow statement has to be statutorily included in the audited financial statements of the company, which are shared by the company at the end of the year with the shareholders. So this cash flow statement is prepared statutorily as per the statutory requirement. और ये जो कैश फ्लो स्टेटमेंट है इसका स्टैंडर्ड फॉर्मेट है. दो मेथड है, डायरेक्ट मेथड है, इनडायरेक्ट मेथड है एज फार एज द ऑपरेटिंग कैश फ्लो इज कंसर्न. फॉर द in finance for cash flow from the financing activities and the operating activities are same. So cash flow statement has to be prepared as per the Indian accounting standards GAAP. The fund flow statement का कोई ऐसा स्टैंडर्ड फॉर्मेट नहीं है. मतलब ऐसा स्टैंडर्ड फॉर्मेट नहीं है जैसा कि कैश फ्लो स्टेटमेंट के केस में एप्लीकेबल है. जनरली स्पीकिंग फंड फ्लो स्टेटमेंट का एक मोटा मोटा फॉर्मेट है, लेकिन उतना स्पेसिफिक नहीं है जितना कि कैश फ्लो स्टेटमेंट का है. और मैं आपको थोड़ा सा चर्चा करता हूँ उसके बारे में, उसके बाद हम आगे बढ़ेंगे. सो देखिए, जो कैश फ्लो स्टेटमेंट है, कैश फ्लो स्टेटमेंट इज prepared as per the Indian accounting standards or Indian GAAP. So if your company is listed on any of the stock exchanges in India or outside India, or if your company is in the process of getting listed on any stock exchange in India or outside India, or the net worth of your or the company that we are talking about is more than 250 crore, then to all such entities the Ind AS is applicable, Indian accounting standards is applicable. And within Ind AS, Indian accounting standards, there is a Ind AS 7 which is on cash flow statement. And if your entity falls into this category, then you will have to prepare the cash flow statement as per Ind AS 7. In case if your entity is not liable to prepare the financial statements as per Ind AS, then your entity, assuming of course it has to be that way, because as it stands today the IBC code is applicable only to the companies, and therefore if your company is one, if the corporate debtor which has come to your fold is one where Ind AS is not applicable, then by default in Indian GAAP will be applicable. So the cash flow statement will be prepared as per the Indian GAAP, but there is no difference as far as the preparation of cash flow statement is concerned, either under the Indian GAAP or as per the Ind AS GAAP. So when you prepare the cash flow statement, you will have to identify the cash flow under three broad heads. And what those three broad heads are? Those three broad heads are, number one is the cash flow from operating activities. Cash flow from operating activities. That is number one. Under the cash flow from the operating activities, you will have cash flow happening from two different angles. So number one is the cash flow coming from the profit and loss statement. So what is the cash flow coming from the profit and loss statement? The cash flow coming from the profit and loss statement will comprise of number one, the net profit, or you can say EAT. So net profit or EAT, and that's number one. And the second part will be the depreciation and amortization. So when you make the cash flow statement as per accounting gap, then the first under the first group, that is cash flow from the operating activities, you will have the first cash flow coming from the profit and loss statement, and then you will have second cash flow, second operating cash flow coming from the balance sheet. So profit cash flow coming from the balance sheet. And what will this comprise of? This will comprise of changes in working capital, changes in, or you can say changes in working capital, WC, right? So what does it mean? It means if your inventories have gone down on 31st March 23 when you are making this cash flow, in comparison to the inventory on 31st March 22, which means there is a decrease of inventory, and decrease of inventory will mean there is a positive cash flow that is happening from the operating activities. So these are the two components of the cash flow from the operating activities when you are making the cash flow as per the Indian GAAP or as per the Ind AS. Then after B, A, then you have B, and B will comprise of cash flow from the investing activities. So cash flow from the investing activities. Now what does it mean? It would mean in case of a company which has gone to NCLT under IBC, it would more likely to happen that the company will be selling some of the assets even during the process of insolvency, so as to ensure that the organization, the corporate debtor, is run on the basis of going concern, run as a going concern. So in case if the entity is running corporate debtor is running short of cash, which means there is no net profit, rather there is a net loss. So if there is a net loss, there is no cash flow happening from the operations on account of the profit. Depreciation of course will be a positive number, and अगर यहाँ से आपको इनफ कैश नहीं मिल रहा है, और अगर आपको यहाँ से भी इनफ कैश नहीं मिल रहा है, तो आपको कॉर्पोरेट डेटर को के कैश को मैनेज करने के लिए कैश का कहीं ना कहीं से तो बंदोबस्त करना पड़ेगा. सो विच इज़ द नेक्स्ट सोर्स फॉर ऑफ कैश that you have as a corporate debtor, and that is cash flow from the investing activities. Now what does it mean? It means you will, as an insolvency professional, to run the corporate debtor as a going concern, you will need to identify which are the assets this corporate debtor is having, and which assets are not being used and are not likely to be used in the foreseeable future. So therefore, to run the corporate debtor as a going concern, what you need to do, you need to identify such assets, and in consultation with the COC, you need to take a decision as to should we dispose of these assets so that we get cash, and that cash we can use during the intervening period when you are working on the resolution of the insolvency, and before you have a full-fledged resolution plan coming from someone. Ultimately you have to ensure that you keep the entity running. So उसके लिए आपको क्या करना होगा? उसके लिए आपको कैश फ्लो फ्रॉम द इन्वेस्टिंग एक्टिविटीज़ पे आना होगा, और यहाँ पर आपको आइडेंटिफाई करना होगा कि कौन सी ऐसे एसेट्स हैं कंपनी की जिनको हम डिस्पोज कर सकते हैं. करंट एसेट्स हो सकती हैं और नॉन करंट हो सकती हैं. ओनली थिंग इज जो भी आप सेल करेंगे, करंट एसेट सेल करें या आप नॉन करंट एसेट सेल करें, आपको सिर्फ एक चीज़ देखनी है कि वो एसेट ऑपरेटिंग एसेट्स नहीं होनी चाहिए, वो एसेट्स नॉन ऑपरेटिंग एसेट्स होनी चाहिए. क्या मतलब है इसका? इट इज़ पॉसिबल the corporate debtor is having investment in certain securities. So the investment in those certain securities obviously is not a operating asset. It is a non-operating asset. So even if you dispose those assets and get cash into the business, remember that cash will help you to run the organization while the insolvency process is on. And at the same time, since these investments in the shares and debentures and mutual funds are not your operating assets, they will not have any impact on your operations, any adverse impact on your operations. Likewise, as part of the cash flow from the investing activities, you can also look at certain non-current assets, which are again non-operating assets. And to give you an example, it may be an item of plant and machinery which for some reason is not being used, and for some reason will not be used in the foreseeable future also. And even if you dispose that asset, that plant and machinery, it is not going to impact your operations now and even thereafter. So therefore, instead of letting the organization suffer in want of the cash, what you can do, dispose of these assets, get the cash into the business. Of course, as an insolvency professional, you have an obligation that whatever you do in consultation with the COC, take them into confidence, and I'm sure they will understand the logic and the rationale behind it, and they will definitely support you for it actually. So that is your cash flow from the investing activities. So since we are talking in the context of a corporate debtor, that is why under the head cash flow from the investing activities, I'm only talking in terms of selling of the assets. But for a running organization, for a growing organization, for a profit making organization which is a normal organization which has not gone to NCLT under IBC, for those organizations, investing a cash flow from the investing activities must be negative and not positive. For a corporate debtor, cash flow from the investing activities generally should be positive, but for a normal running company, cash flow from the investing activities must be negative. So when I say negative, what does it mean? It means this organization must make more investment into fixed assets and plant and machinery building, and thereby expand the operations, do the diversification, modernization, and expansion, and all that. And the third component of the cash flow statement that we prepare as per the accounting standard, and that cash flow is known as cash flow from financing activities. Meaning what? Meaning अब आप इन्वेस्टिंग इसका मतलब क्या है? इसका मतलब ये है कि एज एन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन एज अ बिजनेस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, we need cash, and we need cash continuously. Unless we have cash in the business, our business will die. So as somebody has very rightly said, that the lifeline of a business is cash. अगर बिजनेस में कैश है तो बिजनेस सर्वाइव करेगा, बिजनेस में कैश नहीं है तो बिजनेस डाई कर जाएगा. तो अगर हम कॉर्पोरेट डेटर की बात करें तो कॉर्पोरेट डेटर का कैश फ्लो कैसा होगा? कॉर्पोरेट डेटर का कैश फ्लो डेप्रिसिएशन से कुछ कैश अंदर आ सकता है, लेकिन नेट प्रॉफिट से कैश फ्लो आने के चांसेस बहुत कम होते हैं, बिकॉज जनरली स्पीकिंग कॉर्पोरेट डेटर्स का टिपिकली नेट कैश फ्लो नहीं होता है, नेट कैश फ्लो आउटफ्लो होता है, बिकॉज वो कंपनी लॉस करती है. सो देयरफॉर देयर इज नो कैश कमिंग इन फ्रॉम द ऑपरेटिंग एक्टिविटीज, from the profit, from the P&L. From the balance sheet also, invariably you would see that not much cash is coming, because a corporate debtor which has gone to NCLT will hardly have any current assets to sell off and realize any money. It will have more current liabilities and less current assets, and therefore there is a very less possibility of this corporate debtor getting cash from the changes in the working capital or changes in the working capital, and therefore वहाँ से भी possibility कम है. एसेट्स को सेल करके कुछ कैश आ सकता है. अगर समझो देयर इज नो कैश कमिंग फ्रॉम द ऑपरेटिंग एक्टिविटीज and there is no cash coming from the investing activities, then what this company has to do, this company has no choice but to generate cash flow from the financing activities, and that is where the question of interim finance will come. Remember, generally speaking, as a experience, a company which is incurring losses, nobody will do the funding to that company. तो ये कंपनी को कैश कोई लोन देने वाला नहीं है, equity भी देने वाला नहीं है, because unless and until that person has a clear cut vested interest, and that means he has submitted a resolution plan and he want to take the company over. Otherwise there will not be any cash flow from the operations, unlikely to have the cash flow from the balance sheet, that is from the sale of the current assets, and in case if the cash is also not coming from the investing activities, then the corporate debtor or you as the insolvency professional have no choice but to concentrate to generate cash through the financing activities. And within the financing activities, the one option that you have is to use the interim finance. And as I said, interim finance unlikely to come in the form of debt from other lenders, unlikely to come as an equity from any investor. It is more likely to come from in the form of a debt from the COC. Because and why from the COC? Because these are the people who have already lent money to this entity. और अगर सीओसी देखती है कि ये कंपनी को रेजोल्यूशन होने की पॉसिबिलिटी है और इस कंपनी के पास में और कहीं से कैश नहीं आ रहा है, तो ये सीओसी की मेरे ख्याल से ये जिम्मेदारी हो जाती है, रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी हो जाती है, ऑब्लिगेशन हो जाता है, ड्यूटी हो जाती है कि ऐसी सिचुएशन में सीओसी ने विदाउट डिलेइंग एनी फर्दर टाइम should make the interim finance available to the insolvency resolution professional, so that insolvency resolution professional can also only work when he has got cash in his hand to manage the operations of the company. And that is how, friends, we will understand and you will understand as to what is the cash flow statement from the perspective of management of cash flow of a corporate debtor. Now, as regards the fund flow statement, and remember as I said कि दोनों में कुछ फ़र्क नहीं है, फंड फ्लो भी वही बताता है और कैश फ्लो भी वही बताता है, बस फ़र्क कितना है कि हम कैश फ्लो में बात करते हैं कैश फ्लो फ्रॉम दी ऑपरेटिंग एक्टिविटीज़, कैश फ्लो फ्रॉम दी इन्वेस्टिंग एक्टिविटीज़ एंड कैश फ्लो फ्रॉम दी फाइनेंसिंग एक्टिविटीज़. In the context of fund flow, what we do, we look at the cash flow from two perspectives, and what those two perspectives are, we look at the cash flow in terms of uses and we look at the cash flow in terms of sources. So जितने भी हमारे बैलेंस शीट के आइटम हैं, P&L के आइटम हैं, हम उन सबको देखते हैं कि हमें कहाँ पर पैसा लगने वाला है और हमारे पास में पैसा कहाँ से आ सकता है या आने वाला है. So this is what we list out in the fund flow statement, and of course the total of the uses and the sources has to be same, and that is what that is how we will understand the fund flow and we will understand the cash flow statement. I hope this makes sense to every one of you. In case if you have any question, I will give 2 minutes now. You can ask me and then we can move forward. All right, so if there are no questions, let's move forward. Now, I am the insolvency resolution professional of a corporate debtor. So, what should I do to do the management of cash flow of this corporate debtor? Now, in my experience and in my understanding, not only managing cash flows of the normal corporate entities, but also helping the corporate debtors in managing their cash flow. In my experience and understanding, if we have to manage the cash flow of a corporate debtor, or if we have to work on reviving a corporate debtor, a CD, which has gone for insolvency resolution professional, three things we need to do. Number one, for the cash flow management, as soon as we come in the shoes of a resolution professional, what we need to do is we need to immediately prepare annual budget or annual cash flow statement. Meaning what? Meaning the day I come into the shoes of a resolution professional, I immediately need to find out as to for running this corporate debtor as a going concern, what are my cash flow requirements over next 1 year, and what is the cash that I have with me, and what is the cash that I can expect from different sources. Now that is one exercise that I need to do as soon as I get into the shoes of an insolvency resolution professional, because this cash flow then becomes a roadmap for me for next 1 year. And we all know, for the purpose of achieving resolution of insolvency, we have a very limited time, about 6 months. But in practically, we have seen that 6 months never happens in 6 months. It always goes much more than 10 months, 12 months. So assuming that we are able to achieve that, or at least we should target to do that, we must have an annual cash flow which is broken in months. So let's say you get into the shoes of of a corporate debtor in the month of October. So what you must do, you must immediately prepare the cash flow for October, November, December, January, February, March 23 and April, March 24, and then April and there onwards. So पहला सबसे पहले काम करें कि पूरा एक कैश फ्लो, डिटेल कैश फ्लो 12 महीने का बना के लें कि कहाँ कहाँ पर हमारा पैसा जाने वाला है. Assuming that we have to run the organization as a going concern, रॉ मटेरियल पे कितना पैसा जाएगा, सप्लायर को पेमेंट करने में कितना पैसा जाएगा, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कैश कॉस्ट पे कितना पैसा जाएगा, एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन पे कितना पैसा जाएगा, इंटरेस्ट पे कितना पैसा जाएगा, सैलरी वेजेस पे कितना पैसा जाएगा. सो ऑल दैट वी नीड टू डू अ वेरी डिटेल एक्सरसाइज, very minutely, and being conservative rather than being optimistic. So prepare, number one, the cash flow plan for next 1 year. And likewise, ये आपने बनाने के बाद कि कहाँ का पैसा जाने वाला है, I am sure other than you may also have some repayment obligation. So your cash flow will also have in the sources side, in the application side, as to what are the obligations that you have in terms of paying to the financial institutions, to the bank, maybe, why maybe you will have many statutory dues to be paid. So all those need to figure in your cash flow statement, annual cash flow statement. And I can tell you, this is one exercise that we have to do like religiously for being able to manage the cash flow of the corporate debtor. After that, find out as to the day when you are getting into the shoes of an insolvency professional, resolution professional, does this company have some cash available? And if this company has some cash available, then find out as to what is the cash it has available. And then again, you need to figure it out as to how much money you will be getting from your receivables, how much money you will be getting from your cash sales, if at all you do any. And what are the other sources which are available to you, which are the people from whom money has to come. So you need to take all that into account and must aim and target कि जहाँ जहाँ पर कंपनी का पैसा अटका है, जहाँ जहाँ पर कॉर्पोरेट डेटर का पैसा अटका है, वो सब जगह से आपको पूरी कोशिश करके वो पैसा सबसे वापस लेके आना है. एंड दैट इज़ व्हाट यू नीड टू प्लग इन टू योर कैश फ्लो स्टेटमेंट. तो उससे क्या होगा कि आपको पूरे साल का आइडिया लग जाएगा कि month on month wise and month on month, how much is the inflow that you have, how much is the users applications that you will have of the cash flow, and what is there in the bottom at the end of the month. And that will tell you कि कौन कौन से महीने हैं जहाँ पर आपको कैश नहीं होगा, कौन कौन से महीने हैं जहाँ पर आपके पास में कैश सरप्लस होगा. And accordingly, you will need to prepare your strategy, discuss with the COC that if we have to run this corporate debtor as a going concern, now this is the cash flow that we have for the entire year, and these are the periods where we have the cash deficits, and these are the periods where we have the cash flow, and therefore these are the periods where we will need some interim finance. And that interim finance, again, you will need to separately work as to where that interim finance can come from. And as I discussed in the context of the cash flow statement with you, so this interim finance can come from, number one, disposal of the current assets, non-current assets which are not operating. Number two, this deficit in the cash flow statement can also be bridged by disposal of the non-current assets which are non-operating. So that is one source which is available to you. So if you are able to get cash from these sources, your requirements are taken care of, your needs are taken care of. But if it is not available, if you do not have the current assets, if you do not have non-operating current assets available to you for getting cash, and neither you have non-operating non-current assets available to you for getting some liquidity in your hand, then you have no choice but to go for interim finance. And in case of interim finance, in my view and understanding, the prime responsibility of making interim finance available, instead of making the insolvency resolution professional run helter-skelter, it is the prime responsibility of the COC to ensure that the interim finance is made available by them to the insolvency resolution professional, so that he has the cash in his hand and he is able to focus and concentrate on the resolution of the insolvency. To focus on a resolution of the insolvency of that corporate debtor. So that is the number one that you need to do, and that is you prepare the annual budget and prepare the cash flow statement, and that is what you must do for the whole year. And then what you should do for the operating, so this will give you overall perspective. अगले एक पूरे साल का आपको पूरी पिक्चर मालूम पड़ जाएगी कि किस महीने पर आप कहाँ पर हैं और ओवरऑल आपकी क्या कैश सिचुएशन है, और ओवरऑल आपको कितना गोइंग फॉरवर्ड कितने कैश का बंदोबस्त करना है, जिसकी की प्लानिंग आप अभी से कर सकते हैं. फॉर द ऑपरेशनल पर्पज, फॉर द कंट्रोलिंग पर्पज, यू ऑल्सो नीड टू फॉलो द प्रैक्टिस of making a 3 months rolling cash plan. So what is the 3 months rolling cash plan? 3 months rolling cash plan is, let's say we are in the month of October, and so we will have to prepare the cash flow for 3 months. And how do we prepare it? So this is going to be for the month of November, and this is going to be for the month of December, and this is going to be for the month of October. Now, why do we divide the cash flow for the month of October in 3 parts? And that is because when you do the cash flow planning, you will have to divide the month October, the current month, in 3 parts. और वो 3 parts क्या हैं कि पहली तारीख से लेके 10 तारीख तक कहाँ कहाँ से मेरे पास में पैसा आएगा और कहाँ कहाँ मुझे पैसा पे करना पड़ेगा. And please remember, statutory dues are also a very very important outflow of cash that you have to focus on. Just because the insolvency, the corporate debtor is in the process of the insolvency resolution, it does not mean the statutory dues are ignored. All said and done, as in case of a normal running company, you will focus on the statutory dues in the payment. In case of insolvency company also, you still focus on the statutory dues and make sure that you make provision and make those payments on time, and then don't run into a difficulty with the statutory authorities. So अक्टूबर के महीने को आप 3 भागों में डिवाइड करेंगे, 1 तारीख से लेके 10 तारीख तक, 11 तारीख से लेके 20 तारीख तक, और फिर 21 तारीख से लेके 31 तारीख तक. और क्यों कह रहा हूं मैं ऐसा? बिकॉज ये जो करंट मंथ है आपके लिए क्रिटिकल है, इसमें कुछ गड़बड़ नहीं होना चाहिए. तो इसमें आपको जितना प्रिसाइज आप हो सकते हैं, आपको उतना प्रिसाइज होने की जरूरत है. तो अगर आपको सैलरी पे करनी है तो सैलरी किस तारीख को पे होगी, उसके हिसाब से आप उसको यहाँ प्लग करिए. आपको प्रोविडेंट फंड का पेमेंट करना है, आपको टीडीएस का पे करना है, आपको वेजेस का पे करना है, आपको रेंट का पे करना है, आपको ईएमआई का पे करना है, आपको एमएससीबी का बिल भरना है, और आपको बाकी सारे जो भी खर्चे करने हैं वो सारे के सारे खर्चे को आपको क्या करना है, सारे के सारे खर्चे को आपको इसमें प्लग इन करना है. और इससे क्या होगा, इससे आपको वो जो महीना है अक्टूबर का, उसका कैश फ्लो मैनेजमेंट करने को आएगा. और दूसरा, आपको नवंबर और दिसंबर के बारे में आइडिया रहेगा कि नवंबर और दिसंबर के महीने में आपकी सिचुएशन कैसे होने वाली है. और अगर आपको लगता है कि सिचुएशन अच्छी नहीं है तो आप सीओसी को एडवांस में साउंड कर सकते हैं और सीओसी को प्रिपेयर कर सकते हैं टू सपोर्ट यू एंड टू कोऑपरेट विद यू in advance. And then finally, of course, the third step is daily cash flow management. And as an interim resolution professional, of course, you do not have to prepare the daily cash flow statement, but remember, this daily cash flow statement is certainly required by you. Hello? So this cash flow statement has to be there, and it has to be there. It has to be prepared. Only thing is, you do not have to do it by yourself. In the annual cash flow, your involvement is necessary. In the preparation of tri-monthly cash flow, your involvement is very much necessary. But in preparation of the daily cash flow, your involvement is not necessary. Somebody can assist you in doing that. Only thing is, whatever that somebody is doing, he has to keep you completely update and abreast with whatever he is planning and whatever he is doing. Because remember, when a company is in a crisis, cash flow management becomes very very critical, very very crucial, and it always has to be in the hands of the person who is driving that organization. As an insolvency professional, you are the driver of the organization, and therefore you got to ensure that there is a complete control as far as the disbursement of cash of this organization is concerned, so as to be able to manage the cash flow of this organization. Now, finally, what are the principles of efficient cash flow management? Now, before I discuss the efficient cash flow, principles of efficient cash flow management, let me once again leave it to every one of you. And in case if you have any question on whatever that I have discussed with you. You can please ask me, and I would be very happy to take your questions now, and then we can move and discuss the principles of efficient cash flow management. Any question from any one of you? All right. So if there are no questions, what I would do, I would certainly leave 5-8 minutes for the benefit of every one of you, so that you are able to ask me any questions or any query that you may have on whatever I have shared with you. So, what are the principles of efficient cash flow management as regards a corporate debtor? Please remember, the principles of cash flow management and principles of a fund flow management in case of a running company are going to be different than the principles that you would follow in the management of fund flow of a corporate debtor or the management of cash flow of the corporate debtor. So just to give you an idea as to how we would do the management of fund flow in case of a normal running organization. So in case of normal running organization, we will focus on the cash flow statement, and number one, that is the cash flow from the operating activities got to be as high as possible. सो एक कंपनी है जो प्रॉफिट कर रही है, नॉर्मल रनिंग ऑपरेशंस हैं, एवरीथिंग इज गोइंग गुड, सब कुछ बढ़िया चल रहा है, सेल अच्छी है, प्रोडक्शन अच्छा है, एवरीथिंग इज गुड, कंपनी इज मेकिंग प्रॉफिट. सो इन केस ऑफ सच ए कंपनी, द प्रिंसिपल नंबर वन इज cash flow from the operating activities got to be as high as possible. That means the net profit of that company must be as high as possible. Principle number two, cash flow from the working capital should also be positive. So cash flow from the working capital should also be positive. इसका क्या मतलब है? इसका मतलब ये है, this company must reduce the inventory. This company must reduce the receivables. This company must reduce the cash and bank balance. This company must increase the trade payables. This company must make use more of the current liabilities for funding the current assets. And this is the principle as far as the operating cash flow is concerned. Principle with regard to the investing activities. So the cash flow for a normally running organization from the investing activities should be negative. So when I say negative, what does it mean? It means this company must make more investment, purchase more assets, and by purchasing more assets, increase the revenue earning capacity. And by increasing the revenue earning capacity, this company should increase the profit generating capacity. And that is why for a normal running company, the cash flow from the investing activities must be negative. What about the cash flow from the financing activities? So in case of a normal company, the cash flow from the financing activities must do the job of the bridge. So when I say job of the bridge, what does it mean? Let me give you an example. If the cash flow from the investing activities is negative 2000 crore and the cash flow from the operating activities is positive 1200 crore, तो इसका मतलब क्या है? इसका मतलब ये है कि कंपनी 2000 करोड़ रुपया खर्च कर रही है एसेट्स को परचेज करने के लिए, 1200 करोड़ का प्रॉफिट जनरेट कर रही है कंपनी फ्रॉम द ऑपरेशंस. दैट मीन्स देयर इज अ गैप ऑफ 800 करोड़. नाउ दिस 800 करोड़ हैज टू कम फ्रॉम वेयर? दिस 800 करोड़ हैज टू कम फ्रॉम द financing activities of that company. That means company either has to raise debt or company has to raise equity, but somehow the company has to get this 800 crore by way of financing activities. And this is how, these are the principle in case of a normal running company for management of the cash flow. But in case of a company which has gone to NCLT, which is under the process of insolvency resolution, these principles will not be applicable. And why these principles will not be applicable? And that is because the cash flow of a company which has gone to NCLT or which is under the insolvency resolution process is not as the cash flow of a normal company. तो कंपनी जो कि इंसॉल्वेंसी में के प्रोसेस के थ्रू जा रही है, उसका कैश फ्लो फ्रॉम दी ऑपरेटिंग एक्टिविटी, जैसा कि मैंने पहले कहा, नेगेटिव होगा. कैश फ्लो फ्रॉम दी एसेट्स or from the current assets or current liabilities will also be positive, and it is going to be positive not as a matter of choice, it is going to be positive as a matter of compulsion. क्यों compulsion? Because liabilities बढ़ेंगी, and liabilities क्यों बढ़ेंगी? क्योंकि उनका पेमेंट नहीं हो रहा है. एसेट्स कम होंगी. क्यों कम होंगी? बिकॉज एसेट्स खरीदने के लिए पैसा नहीं है, इन्वेंट्री खरीदने के लिए पैसा नहीं है. दैट इज वाई इन्वेंट्री इज गोइंग डाउन. क्रेडिटर्स आर इंक्रीजिंग बिकॉज क्रेडिटर्स को पे करने के लिए पैसा नहीं है, एंड दैट इज वाई दे आर इंक्रीजिंग. सो द प्रिंसिपल दैट यू वुड अप्लाई in case of a corporate debtor are going to be completely different. So what should you do as an insolvency professional? What you must do: number one, focus on generation on cash from the operations. सो अज्यूमिंग, जैसा कि मैंने आपसे पहले कहा कि आपका जो कॉर्पोरेट डेटर है उसकी 3 स्टेजेस हो सकती है: नेगेटिव कैश फ्लो, न्यूट्रल कैश फ्लो एंड पॉजिटिव कैश फ्लो. Assuming that the corporate debtor that you have, because if it is a negative cash flow, then in my view, unless it is an exceptional situation, in my view, if a corporate has a negative cash flow and is likely to have negative cash flow for all the times to come, it is better not to waste time on the resolution of such a corporate, rather focus on the liquidation, so that you do not waste your time and resources doing something which is not achievable. But if the cash flow of the corporate debtor is neutral or it is positive, in such case, of course, you got to work on the resolution of the insolvency, and therefore what you need to do, you need to focus on generation on cash from the operations. क्या मतलब है कहने का मतलब ये है कि जो एग्जिस्टिंग टीम है उस कॉर्पोरेट डेटर की, उसको साथ में लेके चलिए, टीम बनाइए, स्ट्रेटेजिक टीम क्रिएट करिए, एग्जीक्यूटिव टीम क्रिएट करिए, रेजोल्यूशन टीम क्रिएट करिए, और सबको साथ में लेके फोकस करिए कि किस तरह से ऑपरेशन से जो कैश जनरेट हो रहा है उसको बढ़ाया जाए. बिकॉज जितना आप ऑपरेशन से पॉजिटिव कैश जनरेट करेंगे, उतना एज एन इंसॉल्वेंसी प्रोफेशनल आपकी लाइफ ईज होगी. नंबर 2, मिनिमाइज ऑन और एलिमिनेट नॉन वैल्यू एडिंग कैश फ्लोज, कैश आउटफ्लोज. तो अब एज अ इंसॉल्वेंसी प्रोफेशनल, दिस इज ऑल्सो व्हाट यू नीड टू डू. सो यू नीड टू लुक एट द P&L, you need to look at the balance sheet, you need to look at the cash flow, you need to look at the entire trial balance and see there as to कौन से ऐसे पेमेंट हैं ये कंपनी कर रही है उन लोगों को जिनसे इस कंपनी को कुछ भी वैल्यू एडिशन नहीं मिल रहा है. So what you should do, if a person is not adding any value to the business, to the organization, why should you spend money on that person? Stop those payments immediately. So जितने भी नॉन वैल्यू आइटम्स हैं जिन पर कैश फ्लो होता है, सबसे पहले आप उनको बंद करिए, क्योंकि जब आप उनको बंद करेंगे तो उतना ब्लीडिंग कम करेंगे. जितना ब्लीडिंग कम करेंगे उतना ज़्यादा कैश आपके हाथ में इकट्ठा होगा, जिसको कि आप ऑपरेशंस को स्ट्रेंथन करने में यूज़ कर पाएंगे. उसके बाद में थर्ड थिंग आई वुड सजेस्ट, अनलॉक बैलेंस शीट आइटम्स फॉर रिलीज ऑफ कैश. नाउ व्हाट डज इट मीन? मैंने आपको पहले इसके बारे में बताया है, और मैंने आपसे कहा पहले जब आपसे बात कर रहा था, व्हेन आई वाज टॉकिंग टू यू अबाउट द कैश फ्लो स्टेटमेंट. सो व्हाट यू कैन आल्सो डू, लुक एट ऑल द करंट एसेट्स इन द बैलेंस शीट ऑफ द कॉर्पोरेट डेटर एंड ट्राई एंड आइडेंटिफाई certain current assets which are non-operating in nature, and see if those current assets are not required by the business, and if the money is locked up in those current assets. Now these current assets, remember, may be in the form of loans and advances, which means company took give a guarantee or took a letter of credit years ago for 500 crore, 100 crore, 50 crore, 20 crore, and at that time company gave a margin money of 10%, 20% to the bank for the release of the bank guarantee or for the release of the letter of credit. Now the letter of credit is over, bank guarantee is over, but the margin money is still lying with the bank. Now this is your money, this is the corporate debtors money which nobody has paid attention in the past. So now you pay attention to it and get that deposit unlocked, get that deposit into your kitty, and that will help you strengthen your hand as far as the cash flow is concerned. Then fourth thing in my view, as I said earlier, interim finance. So देखिए, अगर एक कंपनी की हालत ख़राब है तो एक नॉर्मल कंपनी को कोई पैसा देता नहीं है, और अगर वो कंपनी NCLT में जा चुकी है तो कौन उसको पैसा देने को तैयार होगा, अनलेस एंड अनटिल उसका कुछ वेस्टेड इंटरेस्ट हो, अनलेस उसका कुछ लॉन्ग टर्म प्लान हो उस एंटिटी के बारे में. और अगर ऐसा कुछ है तो आप वो रिसोर्सेज को टैप करिए टू गेट द इंटरिम फाइनेंस. अगर ऐसा कोई पॉसिबिलिटी नहीं है, then of course you need to approach the COC with a plan and tell the COC, look, if you make for running this organization as a going concern, I need over next six months or over next 12 months if necessary, so much of money, and I have tapped all the resources, so this much only I can have in my hand. The balance you have to give, because only if you give the balance to me, I would be able to help this company turn around. And if this company gets turned around, the COC is the prime beneficiary, because they will start getting their money. from the turnaround, and also when somebody comes with a resolution plan. So the fourth thing that you do, approach the COC for the interim finance. And of course COC अगर आपको interim finance देता है तो अच्छी बात है, और अगर वो नहीं देता है तो फिर आपको बाकी सोर्सेज को भी टैप करना पड़ेगा, जिसकी पॉसिबिलिटी बहुत कम है. लेकिन रिमेंबर देयर इज always a solution for every problem. So there is no problem on this earth which does not have a solution. There is a solution for every problem that we have on this earth. The only thing is we will have to go an extra mile to find out as to where that solution is. And when we find out that solution, we are able to implement it, and then we are able to do and perform our role as desired, as required, successfully, as a true interim resolution professional. So friends, these are the thoughts and ideas which I thought based on my experience of handling corporate finance for so many decades, and of different type of companies, different sizes of company, and also having advised the corporates all over the globe in management of funds, in management of cash flow, and in various strategic matters. These are the thoughts that I thought I would share with you. So we still have 2 minutes available. In case if any one of you have any question or any doubt or any query, you can please go ahead with it. I would be very happy to take your questions, take your doubts, and take your queries. Thank you very much. Wish you best of the times always. Thank you.